Hello, and welcome to the Let's Talk Transformation podcasts. Today, we will be talking about relational leadership and why it is more important than ever to look at the shift that's needed in the way we lead in today's complex world. We've industrialized leadership, we've turned it into a job title, a certification race, a performance theatre, and in doing so, we broke it. So hold that thought as we will explore these themes with today's guest, Celine Schillinger, with over 20 years of global leadership practice and author of the award-winning book, Dare to Unlead. Celine, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Susie. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Celine, you design innovative solutions to create dynamic cultures and organizational resonance, but you're also looking to enhance leaders' understanding and application of relational leadership. So, we're going to explore how relational leadership works and how to effectively unlead so that your organization actually scales and your team stay aligned and transformation actually sticks. So if I come to that, it leads me straight to your book, Celine, Dare to Unlead, and the breakdown of leadership as we know it. So can we start with you saying that the leadership model inherited from Taylor and the Ford era is now destructive as opposed to productive? Can you unpack that for our listeners?
Yes, of course. And I would even start with the field, with what I have observed by being myself immersed in the corporate world, because
Mm.
that's where everything started. It didn't start from, some scientific study or a literature study from, about everything from leadership. It really started from a lived experience
Mm.
in corporations. I started my career in small, very agile, we didn't use that word then, but very small and agile kind of companies. And then later on, like about almost a decade after, I joined a large pharmaceutical company. And I think there's nothing specific to pharma.
Mm.
But there's something specific to large industrialized companies. You mentioned that leadership has been transformed into many things, titles, etc. It has also been transformed into an industry,
Mm.
and
Totally.
therefore it has been mechanized, transformed into
Mm.
some with a very mechanistic approach. And that's what I have observed about the company in general, being immersed in that huge old global company that had a very important, very deep purpose. I could not, I was shocked by
Mm.
how difficult it was to actually operate against this purpose and to actually progress both business wise and human wise. And it didn't shock me right away.
Mm.
I think the passion of discovery took the lead first, but then progressively I started to realize that the culture of the company was getting in the way of its own ambitions,
Mm.
and that maybe it was not even specific to that company.
Mm. Mm.
So that's where I started to observe the leadership dynamics and and maybe to deconstruct what is being called a leader, and how we stand up and as leaders, and what we reproduce
Mm.
um, versus what we create. And
Mm.
I find that we reproduce a lot of toxic patterns,
Mm.
and these are taught in business schools or taught in leadership courses. And these are, yeah, like behaviors that you reproduce because that's how everybody does,
Mm.
in large organizations. So this very vertical model, maybe there's kind of a French specificity, I must say, because I haven't
Mm.
observed that as predominantly in other cultures, but
Mm.
very much in yeah, Latin cultures, I would say.
Mm.
North America too, as well, I must say.
Mm.
But anyway, this male-dominated, ego-driven, territory-obsessed kind of um, leadership, for
Mm.
the sake of a better word. But this is, I believe, a huge blocker in in front of how we try to, in the solutions we should be able to to reach collectively.
Mm,
We are still dividing problems into tiny little bits and trying to solve them at this little bit level, and then joining all those little bits of solutions through a heavy infrastructure of control
mm,
and of prediction and control. And this is, I think, completely outdated. It is slow. It is not efficient, and it breaks people. You see the consequences of this leadership model is the consequences are actually terrible on the planet, on the
mm,
people, the rate of burnout, the rate of disengagement, the rate of people being unhappy at work, and the social cost of all
mm.
that is just absolutely horrible. So I try to de deconstruct or but really from the practical perspective, from a field,
Mm.
perspective, being immersed in that work, doing the work, not just talking about it.
And yeah, and that's what I love about your book as well, and also your approach, is that it comes from hands-on lived experience, which means it's a practitioner's playbook as
Yes.
opposed to theory. And like you say, it's very obvious when we take a step back what's wrong with the leadership
Mm.
practices in organizations. First of all, it isn't considered as a creative activity. That's a
Mm.
shame.
Yep.
That's not the way it's been framed.
Mm.
I also think this shift you talked about from what I call ego to eco. So
Mm.
how do we move to something more holistic, something more collective? And the cultural aspect is huge, isn't it? Organizational culture, but also, as you touched on very rightly, national culture,
Mm.
which brings its own level of complexity and a different way of framing leadership in organizations. I mean, if you think about a time, Celine, when you looked at a corporate culture and thought, my goodness, this is failing leadership in action, what alerted you? As a leader in those organizations, what was something to trigger you thinking, my goodness, I need to step in here?
There are many little signs, and I think they individually at first I didn't notice. I
Mm,
thought, oh, maybe the problem is on me.
mm,
Maybe because I don't have the right background, I don't have the right, understanding of things, and maybe that's how things should be run. But it's the accumulation of little signs. For example, the homogeneity, the
mm,
incredible social and cultural homogeneity, and ethnic and
mm,
gender or whatever, everything, homogeneity in the among the decision-making class, the prevalence of no versus yes, the absolute difficulty in making innovative projects move forward.
mm,
Those kind of things made me the risk averse
mm,
nature of leaders. The who was that thinker who spoke about very eloquently about the risk of doing versus the risk of not doing. I can't remember the exact wording of that, but basically in organizations you get blamed if you've done the wrong things. You never get blamed if you haven't done what you should
yeah,
have
for
done.
not doing. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So the best way to avoid this risk is to actually do nothing.
Mm, mm,
So so then that's what I where I see a lot of complacency, a lot of yes people,
mm,
saying yes to power and not taking the risk. Maybe they took the risk, a few times and they were beaten for that, and then they stop. And then that's how you get a you know cohorts of prisoners, of
mm,
willing
mm,
prisoners, maintaining the status quo and beating in turn the younger ones that come into the system.
mm,
And that's very sad because you have all those youngsters coming out of schools and with high ambitions and energy to change things, and then they get conformed
mm,
to the system
mm,
very, very quickly. And it
mm,
just takes, I don't know, a couple of years, and not even that, maybe.
mm.
And then you got everything, complaining that things are what they are and that we can change. But then this energy doesn't go away. The problem is that this energy finds other ways to express itself, namely in politics. And
Yeah.
that's how you get all those people frustrated and enraged and therefore voting for the extremes, because well, it appears as being one way to shake the system,
Mm,
which can't be shaken from the inside, from companies,
mm,
um, which I think is a pity and a loss of opportunity, not just for the business, but for the people, for society too. Because
mm.
business, work is probably the last space where we have to be together with people we haven't chosen.
Yes.
People who are not part of our bubble
Mm,
or social circle or etc. And so we have to be with these people. And so it is an amazing opportunity that we can use, we can leverage to uh, develop this muscle of
mm,
this diversity muscle. I'm not thinking of diversity as, the DEI thing.
mm,
I'm thinking of this muscle that makes us comfortable in dealing with people who have different opinions, different worldviews, who don't think like us, don't vote like us, don't pray like us, don't pray at
mm,
all, maybe.
mm,
And it's getting more and more difficult to be in a situation where we have to interact with people who are unlike us. And I find that the workplace is one of these spaces. And because it has such a clear mandate, we
mm,
have to do the business that we are in for, so it has a very clear mandate, which creates an opportunity. So
mm,
how do we roll our sleeves and make this mandate, make this purpose happen together?
mm, mm,
Not just me and my opinion and people who believe like me, but all of us together.
mm,
So that's what I call leadership, in
mm,
fact. Is how do we make things, how do we create something that is productive, that creates value for a company, value for a society, for the people, and
mm,
how do we mobilize our diverse talents to do that, instead of uh, relying on just a fraction of
mm,
the available talent.
mm. And what I like about that is it's two sides of the same coin. I'm going to pick up on energy and power,
Mm,
okay? Both of which are very present in organizations, both of which can be a constraint or an opportunity. And the yes but people or the yes and people, without wanting to categorize, but it is a mindset, isn't it, in
mm,
terms of how you think about power,
mm,
which today is very much a constraint,
mm,
and a sort of I will control what's happening, although I can't control information or knowledge anymore because generative AI is taken out of my hands. But I will still try and protect my territory. I will still try and protect my people.
yeah.
That's my talent, and they do what's said on a job description, etc., etc. I'm exaggerating for emphasis, of course. And then also the energy that comes from that can either create momentum in an organization, if I come to a more relational energy,
Mm,
or it can stifle energy in an organization. And I think before we move into the relational aspect of that, what power structures do you think we're still honoring, Celine, because they're familiar, even though we know intellectually they're not effective?
Yes. Well, it seems to be, it's very clear. We still honor this system where one knowledgeable person, the most knowledgeable and recognized person, has the right to override
Mm,
every other's opinions, because it's easier, but this was all originated from times when people were much less knowledgeable than
mm,
today. And so, yes, there was a literacy issue. Yes, knowledge was less available everywhere. And so it could make sense in the beginning, of the industrial age. It could make sense to hand over the power, to the decision-making power, to those who knew how to read and write, and who were intellectually superior. Now, this is completely nonsense, I would say. Nowadays, literacy is much more spread out, and we have all these different fields of knowledge having a reason. Now with the advanced technology about everywhere, you have many, many managers who are less knowledgeable about the field they manage than their direct reports or even people below
mm,
them. So knowing knowledge is not a reason anymore to justify this pyramidal hierarchical way of approaching things,
mm,
management.
mm,
Um, Knowledge work has completely changed that. Relational work, not in the sense of relational leadership, but the fact that customers want to be understood, they want to be treated as special individuals.
mm,
The service economy, all these changes in the way value gets created has really completely change the foundations of our old decision-making systems. So we need much more, yeah, agility and diversity of knowledge together,
mm,
uh, and being coordinated without a heavy machinery of bureaucracy, because this
mm,
is too slow. It
mm.
doesn't work.
And what do you think that leaders can do? Because I think everybody has agency in whatever system,
Yes.
however small they may think that agency is, it's still agency.
Mm,
What can leaders do to start shifting that system, Celine?
mm,
Because you wrote your book in 2022.
mm,
We're 3 years down the line.
mm,
Have you seen a shift? And if so, what leadership practices have you observed that have led to that shift?
mm. So I think what leaders can do right away is stop seeing themselves as the center of the system. So I don't think
Mm,
any well, a few of them still see themselves as the top of the system. I think this
mm,
is very bad, and of course, models and theories has tried to shift that from
mm,
a long time already with servant leadership, for example, having the leader at the bottom of the pyramid, but it's still a pyramid, so it
mm.
doesn't change things much.
Yeah.
And then we've seen other forms, other visualizations where you have kind of the center and the leader in the center. And I would also remove that kind of analogy. I would say the leader as in the sense of the person who questions himself or herself about leadership
Mm,
should see him or herself as an enabler of a network. That network can thrive more or less without him or her, but it can become so much stronger and effective if
mm,
he or she does the right thing. So the right thing is to, I believe, to foster connections in multiple ways, connections that do not go necessarily through him or
mm,
her.
mm,
That's
mm.
so. How do you make yourself dispensable? That's a that's a very important point, I believe. Not in the sense of demagoguery, like
Mm,
oh, you know better than me, and I can disappear, I can go on holiday, and everything will work fine without me. No, that's not the point, of course. But how do you make those connections strong, effective? How do you make people uh, leaderly enough
mm,
with you, and even when you're not here, that they can make decisions, they can make compromises, they can, decide without having to come to you
mm,
to decide in the last instance. Maybe it still happens, but it should not happen frequently. It should not happen all the time. You, as a leader, our job is to, I believe, stop this parent-child dynamic in the workplace, which is comfortable both for parents and child
mm.
in
Yes.
many instances. So we need to step into the less comfortable and have people also step into the less comfortable, say, hey, you're not the child anymore, you're I will not play in that dynamic.
Mm,
So let's invent
mm,
another form of relationship, which is adult and And have I seen a lot of change in the past 3 years? I have seen, I would say, unfavorable changes in politics,
Ah, yes.
where
Mm,
the strong
mm,
man and the strong men are still appealing to many voters, many people, um, which is both unfortunate, but also, I believe, a sort of a phenomena that
mm,
arises from what I try to witness, and what I witness and what I try to change. I think it's a disease we are going through because
mm,
of the weight of uncertainty and stress and late stage capitalism and extractive capitalism. It puts such a stress on us,
mm,
on our planet, on the that many people want the easy solution, what they believe is the easy solution. Or let's trust
mm,
the big guy who speaks loud and who's vulgar, and that means he's not playing by the rules, and because the rules have betrayed us.
mm,
So I understand why we are here, but it's very dangerous. So I hope we can um, change course
mm,
fast.
mm. And it brings me to, as you were talking, I was thinking about manipulation, and it's the difference, isn't it, between mobilization
Hmm.
and manipulation.
Yes,
And if I come back to mobilization,
yes.
how does that work in organizations?
Mm.
Can you give us, can you walk us through an example where you've mobilized
Mm.
hundreds or thousands
Yes,
maybe through relational leadership and how it remains mobilization and not manipulation?
yes. It's a very important distinction, and one that I think should stay top of mind for any
Mm,
engagement professional.
mm,
You are trying to mobilize people, to engage people, not to direct them by hiding a sort of ideology.
mm,
You're not trying. You, we're not playing with people. We're not
no.
playing with employees. Um, so an example I come back to quite often is this project of improving quality in a large pharmaceutical company that was not going very well. The company had a strong purpose, and it was, people were proud to work
Mm,
there, but still they did a lot of mistakes. There was a enormous amount of problems, and those problems were, until we changed things, were addressed in a very typical way, very traditional top-down way, where you try to educate people, to instruct people, to maybe punish people if they do the
mm,
wrong things, and all these things are not wrong per se, but if you only do that,
yeah.
you maintain very much this parent-child relationship, this which people will try to evade by playing the nasty kid,
Mm,
or by hiding information, or by perverting the system in another way. And instead of that, we try to create a movement, or a new form of energy, and a new form of having people how sorry, develop a kind of a new identity about themselves in the workplace.
mm,
Instead of seeing themselves attached to their particular job and role and location, building, whatever, uh, we try to enlarge this identity so that they see themselves part of a whole, uh, part of like an important piece of the system, of a living system, of an ecosystem,
mm,
of a network, of a community, and having and making people um, feel, not just understand, because understand is the brain, but
mm,
feel that they did have a role to play, and they could make a difference, and they, wherever they belonged, and they would be welcomed, and they
mm,
would be seen and heard and recognized, and again, not with silly gimmicks like
mm,
employee of the month thing,
mm,
not by creating some internal competition of any sort, because
mm,
this is really toxic, but by celebrating the progresses that we would make every day, thanks to everybody's contribution. And so we had a leader at that time who was very, it was decisive for this. So it was not French. And so he was somebody who was very comfortable with this a hierarchical um, form of relationship.
Mm,
Not to mean that hierarchy disappeared, not at all. Hierarchy was still there. You still had
mm,
managers and whatever, all sorts of layers. But in the way we relate to each other, in the way we contribute to the overall goal, there was not someone being more important than the other.
mm,
We were all important,
mm,
and we created a form of, yeah, it was fun. It was cool. It was interesting. It was new. It was, all those elements, which triggered a new way of looking at
mm,
quality. Quality
mm.
suddenly became, I mean, it was not sudden. It took a few months, of course,
Of course.
but it lost its boring have to kind of
Mm,
aspect, and it became something energetic and cool and want to kind of
mm,
thing.
mm. Which is brilliant. I mean, we know that playfulness is very good for the brain.
Yes.
And that's a great example of how relational leadership
Mm.
hierarchy can still be an element in that jigsaw puzzle, but
Yeah.
it crosses the boundaries. And I think, people who do want to do things differently and get excited about creative things, they resonate on the same frequency. And that's also resonance in energy,
Yeah.
which is great, Celine. But if I look at the rest of the system,
Mm.
how do you scale that relational energy
Ah,
without burning out
yes.
those people who are trying to change the
Mm.
system for
Mm.
the collective good, but it's still a
Yep.
very energy hungry activity?
Yes. So a few things here, a few tips. First, you should not have this rest on too few shoulders.
Mm,
So if you create like a mini team or a small mini champions network, whatever, you will burn these people out very, very quickly. So it has to be very fast, like not fast, but it has to be envisioned right from the start as something that is open to everybody.
mm,
Anybody can, spend, I don't know, 10 minutes a week doing something, or um, even less or more. It depends,
mm.
So, for example, I run projects with volunteers with a fast rotation system,
Okay.
so that
Hmm.
we don't burn people out. Another tip is that you cannot scale that by reproducing it elsewhere exactly as, because it's a living system. So
Mm,
it grows with from people's connections and ideas, etc. So the only thing you can do to scale it up is to connect with other or departments or whatever in the company, and create the conditions for new versions of it to
mm.
happen. But it will never scale exactly in the same way. For example, if you already think about expanding to the entire company something that has worked well in a department, you're already in a mechanistic
Yes.
approach,
I was just thinking that. Yeah, yeah.
some industrialization approach, and therefore you can sure you will be disappointed. So
Mm,
instead of that, I suggest to go and observe where is their energy in
mm,
other parts of the system, and then maybe connect the energy centers, or yeah, so that they can benefit from each other, they can learn from each other, and they can expand in their own, in what makes sense for them. So
mm,
what makes sense for a quality initiative or a quality department may not make sense for a finance department,
mm,
or the finance branch of a company, whatever.
mm,
But other things, uh, yeah, some things may inspire,
mm,
something from quality may
mm.
inspire the financiers, and for them to develop their own way of mobilizing people.
Yeah, which looks very different. It's an emerging blueprint as
Exactly.
opposed to a
Yes.
roadmap or a
Yes,
template or
exactly.
Which
That,
brings me to the idea of freedom, the freedom to act within the sort
yes.
of organic space. And I love the fact that you split your books, Come Back to Identity,
Hmm.
into something that's very close to your national culture, of course, your national identity.
Mm,
And you split it into the three parts of liberty, equality, fraternity.
mm,
I mean, we could do a whole podcast on that, but I want to be respectful of time. But I do want to talk about it because I think
mm,
it's unique, but I also think it's very impactful in terms of
mm.
what it really means for leadership practice. Celine, can you walk us through why those
Yes.
three, what they mean for leadership practice?
Yes, it almost started as a pun or as a joke when I tried to organize my ideas. But then the more I thought about it, the more I felt it made sense. So freedom or liberty is about creating more freedom in the system rather than less. We tend to believe mistakenly that the more controlled and processed
Mm,
a system will be, the more reproducible, the more effective it will be.
mm,
Experience shows us that no, it does not happen this way. Because we are in living systems, things change, new technology, people leave, whatever, people change, and consumers change, and so on. So the more freedom, the more freedom you recreate around people at work, not the freedom to do whatever they want,
yes.
obviously, but the creative freedom to offer new solutions, to see problems through a new angle,
Mm,
to connect with other people, to address an issue, whatever. This creative freedom is very much gone in many companies,
mm,
and the arrival of AI may reinforce that, or it might be an
mm,
enabler for more creative freedom. It depends on how we want to use it.
mm,
But freedom also starts with, I mean, before you can inject more freedom in the system, so before you can, trust people more, create more space for them to play and to test and to offer new ideas, you have to become more free yourself.
mm,
So that means questioning the very behaviors we reproduce, the very, is it okay to do whatever I'm told by my manager? Is it
mm,
okay? I know I should do that because that's it. I'm an employee also, even though I may be at a high level. I do have a job description. I do have, but still, where is my area of freedom? Where can I exercise it
mm,
in order to show to people around me that it is okay to have this latitude and to keep to maintain it. So that's the first element I would think: freedom, the creative freedom, create new ideas and so on, and um, and then that freedom at a collective level needs to be connected with other people's freedoms so that we do things together. And that's where I think the network model,
mm,
where we are not connected to each other as superiors or inferiors, but we are connected to each other as equals.
mm,
Um, and again, that doesn't mean that hierarchy disappears, and that, I don't know, the differences in salaries will disappear. Of course not,
mm.
although they could be
It's
compressed.
smooth.
Yes. So that CEO doesn't earn like 5,000 times what the
Mm,
color worker earns in the same company. But so being removing those patterns of domination and submission, which I which are, I believe, very detrimental to the
mm,
quality of our interactions. And finally, because a network can feel a little bit unstructured, I feel there's a need to keep this network together
mm,
at all times, but without this heavy infrastructure of control that has marked the previous times, bureaucracies. So here, I believe that with fraternity, the
mm,
sense of we like to be together, we want to because it's nice. It feels good. I like to go to work because I like the people that work there. although they are very different from me.
Mm,
They are not people I have chosen, or um, so this fraternity. How can we develop this sense of um, we are co-activists for something
mm,
that we want to do together. We are
mm,
pursuing together. So
mm.
voila, these are the three pillars. I try not to create or not to enclose myself in a framework. That's
Yes.
why I don't call it a framework. It's just a set
Mm,
of universal principles.
mm,
There's nothing like trademarked. It can't be on
mm,
purpose,
mm,
because otherwise we are just reproducing,
mm,
um, the aspects of extractive capitalism that has
mm.
failed us.
Yes.
So I am not creating the Celine Schillinger framework trademark.
Trademark, yeah. But, but if I take those guiding principles, so
Mm,
giving people a voice
mm,
within and creating an area for freedom,
mm,
network leadership in terms of equality leading across boundaries,
mm,
and then fraternity, if I say that in like a virtual hybrid world,
mm,
which blurs connection, we need to build a we
mm.
space.
Yes.
What relational practices matter the most, Celine, to create this environment? Because we're still in a system that is at best shifting,
Mm,
where silos are still dominating, and the
yes.
system as a whole is fragmented. And as you said so eloquently at the beginning, we tend to just hone in on our little part of the system, our budget, our governance, our territory.
Mm, mm. So I have, in that respect, in that aspect, I have changed a little bit my practice over the years.
Hmm.
In the 2010s,
Hmm.
I had a lot of hopes in social media, internal social media.
Mm.
And I did a lot of amazing things with the emerging Yammer and that
Yes.
kind of internal social networks. External too, I learned a lot. I connected with amazing people. To me, they were the example of this kind of flat, rich, uh, kind of network relationships we could create across the globe, and it was very promising. And of course, I have been a bit disappointed, like many of us. What came in, and we realize now it was right from the start. It was present in the very design of
Mm,
those tools. What came in, what became more apparent is the algorithms, the fact that those things do not connect so much as they fragment,
mm,
as they contribute to the fragmentation of the world and the hysterization of the
mm.
world. So I have let go of that, basically, more, both personally and professionally. I'm
Okay.
using that much less.
Mm-hmm.
Intranets and social intranets remain important within organizations, but they are not the key backbone that I use
Mm,
for relational leadership practices or projects. One thing I've been really leveraging lately for the past 3 years, I would say, is community audio. The
mm-hmm.
power of giving people a voice,
Yeah.
precisely as you said. We can do that using community audio, such as internal podcast or internal radios, or creating those short form or long form, depends on what the company wants, but creating those dialogues
Mm,
and having people hear their colleagues, having people listen to each other without being um, disturbed by the image.
mm,
Image can be very exclusive. It can
mm,
excluding. Sorry,
mm,
image can exclude. It does exclude, people who don't believe they are beautiful enough
mm-hmm.
to show up, for example, and it carries a lot of bias. Voice, not so much. And you have very, very rich ways of creating conversations, like unlikely conversations
Mm,
between people who wouldn't speak with each other, or and to create meaning out of those conversations. You can create visualizations, data visualize. You can visualize conversations. Now with large language models, you can
mm,
do a lot of things when you have large quantity of words, of data available, so that can come out of audio conversations. So yeah, I believe a lot in productive conversations. You know, you
Mm.
can have you can create I'll give you just one example. A company had an issue with its corporate culture, and it was all messy and very fragmented, and they didn't know how to create a vision for the future. And so we had we invited volunteers to come and host an internal podcast. So we had this rotation system.
Mm.
So they do not do it for a long time, but we have new voices and new perspectives coming in frequently. And so this was already the first level of conversations, very with people who had no opportunity to work together before, and so they realized, they talked about who they are, what they do, and who they are together.
Mm.
That was really interesting. And then after a while, we collected all the transcripts of those conversations and analyzed them, visualized them, created perception maps that were then provided to the company senior leadership and volunteers, so those podcast volunteers,
Mm.
to create a second level of conversation. Yes, so a sort of a meta conversation, a
Mm.
conversation about the conversation. So with this, you get into a richer, deeper form of dialogue,
Mm.
uh, strategic dialogue with people who are more diverse than the senior leadership level alone.
Mm.
And that was extremely rich, and people feel they belong because they've been heard, they have contributed to those conversations, not just as speakers but also as hosts,
Mm.
and it changes the whole thing. So in the end, you get, I don't know, a series of intentions or words or keywords that could have been issued in an hour of workshop by
Yeah.
senior leadership. And here it took a year.
Mm.
But the process is even more important than the actual outcome,
Mm. Mm.
because it's in the process that you create the connections, the recognition, the agency, that you develop this sort of creative space and so
Mm.
on. You see?
Mm.
So in our urge to go fast and save time, you know, and deliver results immediately, we forget that the process is actually what counts most.
And what I love is it can feel maybe or sound like a step backwards because we're going back to what, only audio?
Yes.
But I think it's also a reminder, Celine, which is what I thought when we were first discussing it, around the power of conversation and human
Yes.
connection. And that's what makes us human. And it's how all humans started is storytelling, isn't it? We used to tell,
Yes.
tell our stories. And as AI comes into this picture, what's your future vision, Celine, for relational leadership? What will it look like, and what will stop organizations from catching up quickly enough?
Hmm. For this, I'm not sure I have a long-term vision,
Hmm.
because I'm very much a pragmatist. I
Hmm.
I work with, you know, the material I have with me here, the people I meet, and it's not that I make grand plans over the future. It's what I see is what I do with it, basically.
Mm.
So I am using AI myself. I would say not too frequently, because I'm a bit afraid of the consequences it has on the planet.
Hmm.
So I'm a bit cautious, I would
Mm.
say. But I find there is potential, as much as we consider it as an enabler of the human conversations and so on. You see, I've been there was another book I read when I was actually, it was published after mine, but
Hmm.
I had heard from the author
Ah,
quite a bit before, Alison Pugh, and she speaks about the last human job, the work of connecting in a disconnected
disconnected
world.
world.
And
Nice.
it's very interesting. She explains how transformationally important it is to have human witness with us, you know, like a
Mm.
therapist, a teacher, a leader. Huh?
Yeah.
And this cannot be replaced by AI. In some cases, it appears that yeah, it's going to be cheaper to have an AI teacher or an
Mm,
AI therapist or that kind of, but it does not do the same job as
no.
as healing or as teaching. It does not.
Mm,
Weight loss, whatever, So the humanness, the human aspect of leadership is here for a long time, I believe,
mm,
provided we do not try to change people into robots.
yeah.
If we do that, if we make our team members just follow the process,
Mm,
just follow the orders, and then there's no benefit of having people work with us, and we can surely change them and replace them with robots, with AI. But then what will people become? And do we
mm,
want more of the extreme votes and revolts and rebellions? Do we want that?
mm.
I don't think so.
No, and I'm not sure we can do strategy without
Yes,
humans. That's
yes,
yeah.
yeah. Mm.
Celine, what would, just before we go, what would your invitation be to leaders if they had to kill one myth about leadership tomorrow to start stepping into relational leadership
Mm.
practice? What would it be?
Mm. The one myth I would like to kill is that they have to be the best.
Mm,
If you believe you have to be the best, think that this is a desire that is entertained by a whole industry, an industry of books, of trainings, of speakers, of the,
mm,
the attention industry wants you to keep believing that you have to to continue consuming those kind of things. You don't have to be the best. You have to be, um, I would say, morally um, demanding towards yourself. So ethically, always challenging yourself. Huh? I
mm,
think that would be so. I would say you don't need one more leadership book. You may need more philosophy books, or talking with, listening to, yeah, thought leaders, artists, going
mm,
to art exhibitions, that kind of things. That you need to do to maintain your emotional and creative abilities,
mm,
vivid and alive, uh, throughout this in those conditions which are very much dehumanizing, which are pressuring us for results and for outcomes. I think that keeping the time, the space, this freedom space for to just think and feel
mm,
and think about the relationship you're having with people, and how you can have this, how you can improve the quality of relationship with your people, whoever they are. Huh? They
mm,
don't need to be whatever people you aspire to be, but everybody in the organization. How can you create this quality of relationship between you and them, and between them and them? Yeah,
mm.
that's uh,
Nice.
that's what I would recommend.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to leave our listeners with that. And what I'm taking away from this is that leadership is a creative pursuit, and we need to be intentional about the quality of our conversations. I think that's really important, particularly as we go into a sort of AI world.
Definitely. And leadership is a collective ability. It's not an individual skill set. It's not something you can master more or less. It's a collective ability that you can help create.
Excellent. That resonates with me. I'm going to let it resonate for a couple of seconds. Celine, thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts, your insights, your experience. Where can people find out more about you, your book, and what you do?
Thank you very much, Susie. People can, well, follow me on LinkedIn. I also don't post very often, but I try to post when it's meaningful. And I have the book Dare to Unlead, which can be found on Amazon. And And I have a blog also. We need social.com is where is my digital house, and they can connect with me at any time, of course.
Excellent. I will put a signpost to your digital house in the show notes so they can find you. Thank you very much, Celine.
Thank you, Susie.
Thanks.
Merci.